Welcome to your practice.
The theme of this practice is stability. Practicing this 20-minute sequence every day will help you feel grounded, focused, and strong.
As with any yoga practice, if there's anything in your body that's not feeling right, please allow yourself to come into child's pose and rest.
If you would like an easier practice, Alana will be modifying the poses throughout the sequence. We will be taking time at the end of the sequence to show proper form and alignment of a few of the poses.
Please come to stand at the front of your mat, feet hip distance apart. Tadasana, the pose of a mountain. Stability. So the foundation of our Tadasana is in the soles of the feet. Feel the soles of the feet on the floor. Press into the big toe mound, the inner heel, the little toe mound, and the outer heel. And then draw the breath from the soles of the feet through the lines of the legs into the pelvic floor. And as you hold that steadiness in the legs, I want you to rock a little bit back and forward. So we want to find our plumb line and stability in all the poses we do. And as you slow the rocking down until you come to a point where you feel stable in your standing pose. Draw the breath into the body and allow the breath to settle into your feet. As you feel the four corners of your feet against the earth, press into the big toe mound, press into the inner heel, press into the little toe mound, and into the outer heel. And take a moment to soften the knees and lift all 10 toes away from the floor. With that amount of stability drawing from the soles of the feet, release the toes back down onto the floor and engage the quadricep muscles up to straighten and empower the legs. And from this place of a standing pose, I want you to draw the attention to the inner arches of your feet. With the power of your breath, you're going to draw the breath up the inseam of the legs until you feel the pelvic floor engage and fire, and the strength and the lift that allows for the spine to grow. Soften the knees a little bit again, and allow the inner thighs to widen. So the sitting bones widen apart, broadening the pelvic floor, and then as you extend the tailbone down, you feel the pelvic floor lift once again. So stability from the soles of the feet and from the core of the pelvic floor to guide us through this practice today. Inhale, sweep the arms all the way up and maintain grounded in your legs as you exhale and dive forward over your legs. Uttanasana, forward bend. Inhale, look forward, dynamically unfurl the spine, remaining stable in the legs, and exhale, bow. Inhale, unfurl, ride the wave of the breath, and exhale, bow. As you look forward this time, engage the legs toward the midline to stabilize the core, and exhale, bow. Step back, downward facing dog. As you step down into downward facing dog, take a moment to feel the four corners of the hand as well as the feet. So press into the mound of the thumb, the index knuckle, the outer pad of the arms, and let the upper arms roll away from the ears, maintaining the stability in your pose with your breath. Inhale, step the right foot forward in between the hands, and exhale, lower the left knee down toward the floor. Go ahead and walk the left hand nice and wide and bring your right hand to your waist and pause. Settle into the stability of your foundation in your feet and in the back leg, and then stabilize the midline by hugging the outer hips in toward the center, feeling the lift of your pelvic floor to extend the spine. Take your gaze to your right. And as you maintain the steadiness to the floor, go ahead and exhale, bend the back knee and reach back for the thigh stretch. Taking a hold, keeping the right elbow soft, as you exhale, draw the heel toward the outer hip. Inhale, lengthening the spine, drawing the outer hips in toward the midline. And as you exhale, draw that left heel toward the outer left hip. One more breath in, lengthening, and exhale, deepening the thigh stretch. Inhale to come out of a twist. Release your hands down to the floor and step back, downward facing dog. Feeling the stability of having all four hands and feet against the earth. From downward facing dog, inhale, step the left foot forward in between your hands. Exhale, lower the back knee down toward the floor. Walk the right hand off of the mat and bring your left hand onto your waist and pause. Let your legs settle down and then stabilize the core by hugging the outer hips in toward the midline and begin to rotate on the inhalation to the left. As you exhale, bend the back knee in and reach back for the thigh stretch. Taking a hold, keeping your elbows soft and your chest open and free. Settling down with the pelvis as you exhale, releasing the heel closer to the outside of the right hip. Re-hugging the hips in toward the midline and then twisting deeper as you draw that right heel closer in. Inhale, lift on the breath. Exhale, draw the back heel in toward the outer hip. Release on the inhalation to come out of a twist. Bring your hands down by either side of the front foot and then press back. Downward facing dog. Enjoying the breath. Inhale 1. Exhale, release the breath. Inhale 2. Exhale, surrender. Inhale 3. Exhale, let go of the breath. From downward facing dog, we're going to step our feet forward into a standing forward bend. Stay firm in your feet, feel earthy in the legs, and bow. As you remain connected with the earth, let the breath bring you all the way up toward the sky, arms lifted, and then fold your hands together in front of your heart. Pause with your hands on your hips for a moment. Feel the soles of your feet grounded, especially the right foot. Grow imaginary roots through the sole of your right foot. And then on the inhale, come up onto the left tippy toes, bringing the left foot to the inside of the right leg. Tree pose, Vrksasana. Pause and find the equanimity and stability in the focus, gazing straight ahead at something that's not moving. Bring the arms up by the side on your next inhalation breath and remaining stable with the outer hips hugging toward the midline. Lift up, gaze up, reach up, grow the branches of the tree, and then release the hands down in front of the heart. Namaste. Bring the knee back to center and then feel the 2 feet on the floor. It should feel nice and stable, having your center base. So finding that plumb line once again, lining up the diaphragm of the pelvic floor, the diaphragm of the lungs, and the diaphragm of the throat. Lean the weight a little bit to the left foot and come up onto the ball of the right toes. Go ahead and inhale and bring your foot to wherever you're placing your foot today. Using your arms to stabilize is fine, out to the side or on the pelvic bowl. And then hugging the midline, inhale, lift the arms all the way up. Maintain a width across the shoulders and the stability to the center of the core. Use your pelvic floor, lift the pelvic floor, and then release the knee back to center. Release the leg down to the side. Pause with your arms for a moment and just feel the equanimity of the body and the breath. Remain grounded in your feet as we transition into triangle pose. Please take a deep step back with your left foot and straighten the front leg, bringing your hands up onto your pelvis and facing the other direction. To stabilize the legs, once they're wider apart, lift the toes and draw the muscle to the bone on all 4 sides of the legs. Maintain the outer hip hugging toward the midline, and then on an inhale, reach the arms out to the side, engaging the muscles even from the fingertips all the way to the shoulder blades on the back. Maintaining that stability, ride the wave of the breath as you extend the pose forward to touch the floor or your shin, and then pause, finding the stability of the breath. Line up the gateway of the shoulders and allow them to open. Feel the soles of your feet from the power of your pelvic floor. Press the lines of the legs long into the soles of the feet. Breathing behind the back body, begin to twist the inner body up toward the sky as you gaze to the top hand. Enjoying the breath, breathing in on 1, release and let it go. Breathing in on 2, and exhale, let it go. Breathe in on 3, and release the top hand, gaze down toward the front foot. Bring both hands to either side of the front leg and step the back leg closer in to about 3 feet apart, and take a moment to square the hips and stabilize the base and the foundation of the pose. Walk the left hand to the inseam of your right foot. Bring your right hand up on your waist and pause. Breathe from your right hand to your right shoulder blade to create space first, and then stabilize on the exhalation from the pelvic bowl down through the legs and into the feet. Keeping the base stable, begin to rotate around the center spine as you look to the right. Lift the right arm up toward the sky, and as you press into your left hand, draw the belly to the right and unfurl the spine as you twist up toward the sky. Right tailbone carves and presses down into the front heel. Inhale to come out of the twist. Place the hands down by the front foot. And then on your next inhalation, bring your hands up onto your pelvic bowl and come all the way up to stand. Turning the toes in, rotate to the other leg. Taking a nice wide stance and pause and settle the breath. Remembering the tone of the muscles, lift the toes, engage the muscles, draw the core of your pelvic floor up and broaden the shoulders apart. Inhale, lengthen the arms out to the side, and exhale, extend and reach, triangle pose on the other side. Allowing the opening to be free in the chest. As you turn your gaze to the top hand, use the breath across the back of the diaphragm. Allow the bottom ribs to rotate forward as you twist deeper. Breathing in, and exhale, twist the upper body. Breathing in, and exhale, rotate. Inhale, look down toward the floor. Release the hands, square the hips, and take a slightly shorter stance, about 3 feet apart. Pause, come up onto your fingertips and lengthen the spine. Stabilize the legs by drawing the quadricep to the bone and pushing the top of the thighs back. Especially let the right sitting bone widen so the pelvic floor widens, and then tailbone down the back of the left buttocks down through the back of the leg until the heel is grounded in the earth. Bring the right hand to the center of the foot. Inhale, lift the left arm up toward the waist. Take your hand this time on your sacrum and feel the low back being level with the floor. Wrap and cinch the outer hips in toward the midline first, and then with the breath, inhale, gaze forward, and exhale, rotate, turn to the left. Twisted triangle on the other side. To remain stable in the back leg, engage the right quad at the very top and push the top of your thigh bone back until you feel grounded in the back heel. Using the inhalation breath to lengthen the spine and the exhalation breath to rotate. Breathing in and exhale, rotate. Release the top hand back down toward the floor, and then walk the hands all the way through center, turning the toes all the way around, and then step back, downward facing dog. Enjoy the stability of hands and feet on the earth, and draw the breath from that place of stability for the full extension of the spine. Reach the sitting bones back. On your next inhalation, bring the right knee forward behind your right wrist and lower the back knee down toward the floor. Taking a moment to square the hips, come up onto your fingertips and create as much space in the upper body as you can. Allow the exhalation breath to settle the pelvic bowl down toward the earth, but maintain a muscular hug. So the front knee and the back knee, they draw in until the pelvis actually lifts up away from the floor. Cinching the outer hips as if the two hip points were going to meet at the front of the seam of a pair of pants. Exhale and bow forward over the front leg, pigeon pose. Taking a moment to feel the stability in the core of the pelvis, and then invite the freedom of the breath to go through the spine and soften and melt just between the shoulder blades to release a little bit. And if you can tuck the back toes under, and you may even find you can lengthen the back leg maybe 1 more inch and then release the knee down toward the floor. Using the breath, let the right sitting bone widen to the right, and then extending the tailbone, feel the belly tone back toward the spine and lengthen the breath as you release, soften. Inhale, walk the hands back upright. Plant your palms firmly with that stability, clawing the floor, press back, downward facing dog. Arms are stable, drawing toward the midline. Legs are strong, engaging through the core. Allowing the spine its full extension through the stability of the pose. Bring the inhalation, left knee comes forward behind the left wrist, pigeon on the other side. Pause and acclimate the hips. Allow the hips to be square with the front, and then engage the muscles to the bone by drawing everything into the core of your pelvic floor. That's the focal point of the pose. From that stability, exhale, bow forward, forearms down to the floor, and soften and melt. Find the widening aspect across the left side of your pelvic floor by letting the sitting bone widen to the side so the inner groin's hollow and the sitting bone goes wide. Lengthening the back leg behind you, carving the tailbone under to feel the low belly lift, the spine extend, and then exhale, soften and melt. Enjoying the breath through the form of the pose. Focal point is in the pelvic floor, so draw the breath from the forearms, from the legs, into the core of the pelvis, and soften and release. Inhale, bring the hands back upright. Exhale, press back, downward facing dog. From downward facing dog, release the knees out to the side. Lengthen the feet and press the hips back, surrendering the forehead toward the floor. Allow the stability of the floor to receive the efforts of the practice. Following the sound of the breath, letting every exhalation release the hips a little bit deeper, softening the area of the shoulders. And with the heaviness maintained in the pelvis and the legs, invite the inhalation to slowly walk the torso back upright and transition by bringing your legs out to the side to come to lie on your backs. Savasana. The legs are hip distance apart. The arms are generous in their space by the sides of the body. Feel the stability of the body against the floor, and invite the floor to receive the full weight of the body as you let go, creating a release inside the hips. Let the energy flow through the lines of the legs and exit through the soles of the feet. Awaken the body with the breath, and allow the breath to travel into small, gentle movements wherever it feels good. And sliding the arms up overhead, turning the toes up toward the sky, and then pointing the toes. Take a full body stretch, lengthening the whole front seam of your being. On your next inhalation, gently bend the knees. Rest the soles of the feet on the floor. And as you exhale, roll all the way to your right side, letting gravity release the body. Feel the back body expand with the inhalation. Gently pressing into the floor, remain heavy in the body and allow the head to be the last thing that comes up. Take a comfortable cross-legged seat, finding the stability of your pelvis lined up with your diaphragm and the freedom in your throat. Taking a moment to feel grounded, steady in your practice. The stability of this practice, together with the breath, bring the hands together in front of the heart, sealing in the fruits of the practice. Namaste.
Invite yourself to learn proper alignment and form.
So they start in a wide-legged stance. They'll inhale and lift the arms out to the side, shoulder height, palms facing down toward the floor. So the measure of your Trikonasana, your triangle pose, if you were to draw a string from the wrists, it would come directly over the ankles. So I'm going to have Nancy take a slightly wider stance with the legs. And the modification for a tight hamstring and tighter spine, you actually need to take the pose wider. So Alana's going to also widen her legs. And then the capacity of the power to engage the legs is super important to keep stable in the base. So they're going to lift all 10 toes, and then they're going to turn the right toes toward the front of their mat. Feel grounded in the front foot, and the tendency is the knee will tend to roll in. So take a moment, look at your front knee, and line up the four corners of the knee. The thread of the breath goes through the front thigh all the way into the inner edge of the foot. And if you pick the pinky toe side of the foot up of that front foot, draw the energy from the outer pinky toe to the outer heel and energetically sweep the right heel forward, the tailbone will carve. From that place, we'll extend and reach the hand all the way for the floor for the flexibility, and adjusting with the hand on the shin for a tighter hamstring. Once you reach the floor, you line up the gateway of the shoulders. So Alana is nice and free. The spine is open, and the upper shoulder on the bottom arm, we want to let the external rotation happen to free the neck. The power in the back leg of the inner thigh lifting. The shin goes to the midline, the inner thigh comes up. And as she breathes, the outer tailbone tucks under, so the gateway of the shoulders are free. The periphery of the wrist tends to want to open for us, so we back our periphery off, and we make the integration from the arm bones, and then the freedom of the chest to open. She'll turn her gaze up toward the sky, and as she breathes, she's going to breathe into the back of her right lung, and the left ribs on the exhalation will soften forward. Beautiful. She opens. Breathe again in the back of the lungs, and exhale, curl forward without the arm bone coming forward. One more time. Breathe in the back waist, and exhale, soften. Freedom in the pose. Root down through the legs. Inhale, rise all the way up. Go ahead and come to all fours to find your alignment. And you want to have your hands directly underneath the shoulders. So Nancy, bring your shoulders further forward, and then walk your knees directly underneath the hips. So a couple inches closer in for Nancy, and about 1 inch further back for Alana. With a strong engagement of the knuckles on the floor, pull the power of the breath up through the arms, and then soften and melt the shoulders to release the heart toward the floor. Allow an engagement of the tone of your belly on the exhalation, and go ahead and tuck the toes under, lifting the knees on the inhalation, press back on the exhalation, downward facing dog. The modification will be with bent knees, so that we allow the bent knees to allow freedom for tighter hamstrings. To find the perfect measure of your downward facing dog, if you inhale and come forward to plank, your shoulders should be directly over the fulcrum of your elbows and your wrists. Soften the elbows a little bit, index knuckle planted, fire the biceps, and then exhale, press back, downward facing dog with straight legs and with bent knees. So once you're in downward facing dog, the focal point sits in the back of the shoulders between the shoulder blades. The lower arms focus internally rotating. The pressure is in the thumb pad and the index knuckle. And then she'll soften her elbows a little bit and roll the upper arms externally away from the upper ears and neck. And now the breath pulls from the hands and it meets in the back of the chest, and soften and melt right between the shoulder blades once again. Beautiful. Full extension up through the back body, over the hips, and down into the heels. If she lifts her toes, she's going to get stronger legs and less weight in the wrist. She's going to engage the quads and lift the quads up. The full extension comes on the exhalation as she'll press from the focal point in the back of the shoulders down through her arms to lengthen her spine and reach all the way back through her legs and to her heels. The ears come in line with the upper arms so that there's a deeper engagement once again. Freedom for the shoulders, opening through the hips, the hamstrings, beautiful downward facing dog. So for tighter hamstrings, we work with bent knees. What we want to do is invite the shoulders to come forward 1 or 2 inches. She engages the midline by drawing the hands in toward the midline. Shoulders come onto the back, and then she softens and melts here. The upper arms roll away, freeing the shoulders and allowing the sitting bones to lift higher. She gets the extension of the spine and draws the floating rib cage back toward the belly. She lifts her gaze a little bit, and then she releases fully back. Even with bent knees, she gets a beautiful extension. From a seated position, the knees come as wide apart to support just the outer edges of the ribs. So Nancy will bring her knees slightly closer together, and Alana's distance looks nice. The inhalation will lift the spine, and the exhalation will be the forward fold into child's pose. The modification is the arms come back to the side. This is a modification for ease in the shoulder and descension of the hips. For Nancy, I'm going to have her stretch her arms longer, come up onto her fingertips, soften her elbows, and energetically lift the elbows up to the sky. So keep the elbows bent and soft. And then she can soften even more here. Once she has that release in the upper shoulders, she can let the palms come flat on the floor. And the release of the hips takes a little toning of the feet. So if you think of clicking your 10 toenails into the floor, you can actually feel your pelvic floor fire. From there, the releasing of the hip is the action of the tailbone. So there's an external rotation for the release and the letting go. The spinal fluid from the sacrum up onto the crown of the head to the occiput. The breath is long, and the release is a full surrender. For a modification in child's pose, Alana's going to bring her arms out to the side. For those of you with knee injuries or tight hips, she'll lengthen her arms and come up for 1 moment. So bring your arms forward for me. And we're going to place the brick as a rest for the forehead, so you don't take as much pressure on the shoulders or the neck. And this will give you more ease in the hips, more ease in the knees, and she can focus the breath. The word asana literally means seat. So wherever you take your seat, you want to feel balanced and strong. For Sukhasana, when the hips are open, if the knees are at the same level of the hips, then you may stay in this pose without raising the hips. She's going to use her hands, palms flat on her knees, and she's going to press her knees slightly up into her hands so that the low back lifts in and up. The sacrum is rising up, the gateway of the hips and the gateway of the shoulder. So to find slightly more ease in her pose, she's going to bring her shoulders and her chest forward, and then she's going to anchor the back plate of her pelvic bowl down toward the floor. And then the breath lines up the diaphragm of the pelvis, the diaphragm of the lungs, and the diaphragm that sits in the throat for full freedom and ease. Vrksasana, if the hips are tight, this is an easier pose to find comfort. The legs are hip distance apart, and Alana's going to widen her feet wider apart. So the feet, if you were to draw a finger line from the pinky toe to the heel to the shin, is the alignment that allows there to be freedom in the hips. We're using the seat of a block so that Alana's sitting bones, she can feel the feedback of the sitting bones against the block and allow the forward tilt of the pelvis to lift the low sacrum in and up. From there, with the foundation of her seat on the block, she's allowing the diaphragm of the lungs to slide over the diaphragm of the pelvic floor, and then she can slide her hands directly back so the elbows are bent and the shoulders have a freedom. They lift and the arm bones are back. The palate comes over the diaphragm, and there's a slight leaning back as if they're leaning back into the support of all the mothers who've gone before them.